Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2024. My name is Madonna Yoder, and you're joining hundreds of folders around the world on this 25-day journey into the infinite world of repeating patterns folded from a single sheet of paper. You'll discover many different twists in this challenge, building up to advanced patterns with hybrid hexagon twists. On the 8th day of Advent of Tess, we're folding a pattern that I call Chiva Rumbera, named for the party bus that we went on after the CFC, Convention for Creators convention in Bogota, Colombia, the other year. So we have open hexagon twists now. So this is a new twist for us, and closed triangle twists around it in tube pleat spacing before we add those hexagon twists on the back side. And in Chiva Rumbera, these hexagons on the back are in positions of threefold rotational symmetry, so you would see a third one evenly spaced from these other two around each of them if you folded more of this pattern. So as always, if you want to see crease patterns with more of the pattern, then the crease pattern ebook at gatheringfolds.com is where you can find that. If you just want to see the crease pattern of this individual section on the 24 grid divisions that we're using today, that is in the PDF downloads available for free when you sign up for email reminders for Advent of Tess at training.gatheringfolds.com/advent. So let's go ahead and start folding. Since this is an open hexagon twist, our mountain folds are going to be one spacing above the right side corner, and the valley folds are going to be one spacing above that. So notice the mountain is one space above the corner, the valley fold is one space further. I'm passing that off to my left hand while I put in my next pleat. Notice that I want to let the middle stay kind of 3D. So if I pick this up, it's staying pretty 3D. It's just these outer bits that are staying flat. And I'll pass those off to my left hand as I add in the new pleat, pass it off. Given that I have this kind of demarcation between the 3D area and the flat area, this third pleat is going to hold on its own if I just hold these two with my left hand. And I'm adding in the new pleat. I'll pass that over. And what we're looking for is this star shape that we can start to see forming. And we're looking for all of the pleats to come consistently off of the star. So this fold that looks like it's happening in this direction, that's spreading apart on a star 120 degrees. We want 60 degrees between each adjacent pair of folds. So that's going to come off this way, not that way. And last but not least, our final pleat is going in there. So all of these, again, are having that same relationship to the corner. And given the fact that I'm putting in the valley folds at the same time as the mountain folds and trying to hold them down against the table as much as I can, that's allowing me to put these folds in one by one and not have to go around and reset all of the folds again and again as I'm working around. So adding the valleys in when you add the mountains and using the table to help you hold everything is super helpful for any twist, really. This twist is the easiest one to squash of all of the ones that we're going to fold. You just hold on to a couple of the pleats and then take your other hand and go bam. It's a little bit startling the first time that you see it, but it is rather fun. Of course, this is something that works really well at the center of the paper. We'll see close to the edge of the paper, we might want to be a little more careful about our BAM squashing. So next up, we're going to add in closed triangle twists at tube pleat spacing all the way around this hexagon. So the tube pleat spacing means I have my valley one space out from the folded mountain of the next pleat over. And then I have my mountain fold one space further than that. Since it's a closed triangle twist, I'm ready to go ahead and open up this existing pleat. I'm flattening it as I open it up and opening back to the intersection of the pre-existing mountain and the one that I just drew on, and making a three-way intersection of mountain folds and bringing them all down on their valleys. I hadn't marked the valley for the third one, but it's going to push around, and this will be a left-handed twist because we did a right-handed twist for the hexagon, and any twist connected on the same pleat to a right-handed twist needs to be a left-handed twist. And once we're there, we can press just outside of where the valleys from one direction are hitting the mountains of another direction and squash. From there, we're going to go around clockwise. And specifically, we're going in this direction so that our overlaps on the other side are going to be easy, or our overlaps of pleats between pairs of triangles are going to be easier to open on the other side of the paper. This is something that I know from experience, and it's not something that I would expect you to be able to think through on your first, 8 tessellations. So the next twist that we're going to work with is going to be folded on the pleat that's at the bottom of the tube. I'm going to have a valley fold one space out from the folded mountain, a mountain fold one space further than that, setting this tube in place. I'm going to fold it all the way closed, only close to the edge of the paper, leaving anything after I hit the pleat from the hexagon undisturbed. And then I'm going to leave the pleat from our previous triangle fully folded as I'm erasing the pleat from the hexagon in to the point of intersection, which is where my third mountain fold will come out. And then we'll lay all of these pleats down so that we get a nice twist and squash. So this is creating a pleat overlap. If I were to try to open this overlap on this same side of the paper, that would be a bit of a pain. I'd have to pop it all the way out from under there. But if I'm opening it on the other side of the paper, ta-da, it's open. So that's why we're working around in this order. Next up, I'll rotate the paper so I can add in my new twist. I'll show it once more with markings. So I've got my tube pleat spacing. So valley fold one space out from the folded mountain, mountain fold one space further than that. And I'm setting up that fold, but not letting it continue past the pleat from the hexagon. And then I'm opening the pleat from the hexagon so that I can find that third direction that's coming to that same intersection point of my original mountain fold and my new mountain fold forming the tube. Then I'll lay everything down, lay all the mountains down on their valley folds, and squash the paper. I'll repeat this process 2 more times exactly, and then we'll use a slightly different overlap for the 6th triangle. So I'm setting up the tube, which is telling me where the intersection point is. That's the center of my twist. And I'm opening the pleat from the hexagon until I reach that intersection point. Keeping the pleat from the previous triangle fully folded, I'll fold through it with my 3rd direction of pleat for the closed triangle twist, and then squash and use my bone folder to get everything nice and flat. Rotating, I'll repeat again, putting in my tube pleat, opening the pleat from the hexagon, or rather the part of it that extends past the intersection of interest for our triangle twist, putting in that 3rd direction of pleat, overlapping the pleat from the previous triangle, and squashing. One more time. And this one, just like yesterday's pattern, we're going to fold the triangle twist first and then rearrange the overlap that's different from all of the others into a compound wrap. So I'm setting up this triangle, squashing it. I have this overlap that's the same as all of my other overlaps. And this overlap is different because it was done in the opposite order. So instead of the twist that's back counterclockwise going through first, and then the one that's more clockwise going through second, it's in the opposite order. So with this ordering, I already have all of the mountain folds that I need for my compound wrap. And as I open up, it's easy to erase the mountain folds. So I'm just going to draw on where my mountain folds are on the outside. And by the way, if I was drawing mountain folds for a compound wrap on one of these other overlaps, this trick would not work because they're folded in a different order and using different grid lines. But for right here, it is going to work, and I'll open up. And what I want is to basically connect the dots with these mountain folds, where I'm going to have this zigzag structure coming in from this upper plate, and this lower mountain, instead of connecting directly, is going to have valleys all around it. So that needs to really sink down, and it's going to have like this river of valley, or this river of space, of one spacing between valley folds and mountain folds, following the zigzag as it comes to a close. So just like yesterday's pattern, this isn't 100% essential for continuing to fold. It's just going to make it easier to open up on the other side. You could also just reorder overlaps and get it easier, or reorder this particular overlap and get it in an easier to open on the other side state. This compound excuse me, this compound wrap is more something that I'm in the habit of doing from denser pieces, where it does make a big difference whether you do the compound wrap or not, because when we flip over, if you don't do the compound wrap, then the dense part is one grid spacing further over than it is if you do the compound wrap. So that's enough about the compound wrap for now. I'm going to start on this area that now has more space because I did the compound wrap. And I want to find my new open hexagon twist in this area. Now, because this overlap is one of the easier ones to open, so I'm not having to like really dig anything out there. I'm just gently opening and it's right there. Because that is the case, then I can go ahead and draw on the mountain folds that I'm going to need, because two of them are already in place. So notice how I have these two mountain folds that are coming together at 60 degrees. That's 60 degrees between them on the outside. And then if they're fully folded, they're defining this 120-degree angle that defines this little hexagon sitting in the corner. So that's going to be kind of my first guess. Not a guess, really. It's going to be my first approach to finding this hexagon. And it's going to mean a little bit of drawing. And then I will have the valley folds matching the same order of mountain then valley as I'm going counterclockwise around. Mountain then parallel valley, I should say. And so I can notice as I'm folding this, as I'm putting all of these pleats in place, that I have a special spacing here. I have tube pleat spacing. And that is something I can use in the future if I don't want to be drawing on my paper. So here I have my hexagon, the puffy hexagon star set up. I can go ahead and press to squash. I have another grid spacing to go before the edge of the paper, so this is still safe to press to squash territory. And then rotating to the next overlap, I can already know, since I noticed the tube pleat spacing there, that one of my pleats is going to go precisely forming a tube in there. And when I'm setting up that pleat, it might be really tempting to just fold through the existing pleat there near the edge of the paper. It might be really tempting to do a three-way intersection of the mountain folds, like you're going to fold the next triangle on this side of the paper, which, by the way, does make a repeating pattern. I call it convection instead of Chiva Rumbera. And the crease patterns for both of them are in the Advent of Tess ebook, the 2024 ebook at gatheringfolds.com. So that's a variation that you could totally do. But what we're doing today is letting the valley pass through, so you get a three-way intersection of valleys, so that then the triangle will be on the same side as the other triangle twists. And then returning back to our open hexagon, now I have a very clear point of my pointy star. And if I open this a little bit more, I can see another point out here, another point down here. I can run another pleat, and a good cue for this one is that the mountain fold is 2 spaces from the edge of the paper. The valley fold is 1 space from the edge of the paper on our 24 division grid. And I'm going to be finishing up these shorter pleats of the hexagon, and then I can go ahead and squash. So the steps in finding this hexagon, we rotate to the next overlap, are, oh, I recognize that in these hexagons, I had this tube pleat spacing, so I'm going to have the tube pleat spacing here too. And by the way, my next triangle is going to be back on the same side of the paper as my previous triangles, so I need to let this valley go through until it hits the existing triangle from the pleat from our previous hexagon. And then that's going to run out in a three-way intersection, and we're going to have mountains one grid spacing away from all of these valleys, which means that that's going to close up. And then we see, okay, this is coming in here, this is coming in here, this is coming in here. This is really starting to show up as that puffy hexagon star. Let me run a fourth pleat down this way, and now we're really seeing the points of the star. And if we need some more cues, we can use the information from our previous two hexagons that this is going to have the mountain fold 2 spaces from the edge and the valley 1 space from the edge. Now it's a matter of finding the remaining pleats around that puffy hexagon star and press to squash. From here, we're going to rotate and do it again. So I'm going to have that tube pleat spacing, but this time I'm not going to draw it on. And I'm going to open the pleat from the previous hexagon in order to do a triangle wrap, since I want that next triangle on the other side. And like I mentioned earlier, you could choose to do a three-way intersection of the mountain folds and have that next triangle on the side that we're working on now. And then I'll add in my fourth pleat, which is folding over with the mountain 2 spaces from the edge, the valley 1 space from the edge. And then I'm noticing and continuing the pattern with my puffy hexagon, where each of these little notches, I'm going in one, out one, then run into the next mountain. In one, out one, run into the next mountain. In one, out one, run into the next mountain. And pairs of mountain folds are 60 degrees apart from each other. And press to squash. Rotating again. I'm going to do exactly the same steps, and I'll do them right now in a sequence that is more natural for me to fold in, but slightly harder to justify in terms of landmarks. So I know from before that I'm going to have that triangle wrap at tube pleat spacing. So I can go ahead and open the pleat above, pop down the appropriate valley, 1 space from the folded mountain, and put in my new triangle wrap above, and just go ahead and do that first. So this is working from prior experience with the same twist. So not precisely ignoring the intersection of the triangle, the pleats from triangles. So take that as you will. Usually when we're adding in new twists, we want to be working from the pleat overlap, from any intersection of pleats out to other references. But since I've seen this 1, 2, 3, 4 times already, that this is a tube pleat, I know already that that's where it's going to go. Likewise, my pleat that goes down to the edge, I know that that mountain fold is 2 grid spacings from the edge of the paper. The valley fold is 1 grid spacing away because I've seen it 4 times already. And then I can get these little legs of the twist in place also, and press to squash. Rotating around once more, we're back to that area where I did the compound wrap. And so this one doesn't look like the others. We can't just draw a hexagon on top of that 120-degree intersection of mountain folds, because that's not where the center of the hexagon is. That would ignore the fact that we need our tube pleat spacing. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the pleat at tube pleat spacing, making sure it's crossing the pleat above so I can do the triangle wrap. And then I'll open up the compound wrap. So there's a little bit tucked under. I'm going to pop that up. And once I've popped that up, now I see a point of the puffy star, another point of the puffy star, and I'm going to have my mountain fold continuing down 2 spacings from the edge, but more importantly, forming another point of the puffy star. And now that is coming under the other plate that I need to wrap around. So if it's coming under, then we erase the bit of the pleat on top until it can wrap, just like we saw yesterday. And then I can set up my 2 remaining pleats around this puffy hexagon star and press to squash. With all of that in place, I'm now going to flip back over to the triangle side and take each of these triangle wraps, and I'm not moving this mountain fold. I'm just switching the valley to the opposite side. So basically flipping the pleat over. And like we saw yesterday, we're going to have a corner of these triangles right at the edge of the paper. And rotating, I'll do the same thing for the next one. I've got my finger kind of on this flap. I never want to be pinching a wing, so I don't want to be pinching, I just want to be pressing, and then press from the top and spread out into that corner. And rotate and press. I'm holding firm here and then pressing with my other 2 fingers to get the twist started to squash, and then pressing out into the corner at the edge of the paper. So hold, press with the other hand, spread. Rotate to the next one, flip, hold, press with the other hand, spread. Rotate to the next one, stabilize, flip, hold, press with the other hand, and spread. And that is all of our closed triangle twists for Chiva Rumbera. So it's a really fun pattern. We're going to if you go ahead and fold this with more repeats, you end up with kind of these capped bars going around these open triangle holes, or sorry, open hexagon holes in 3 directions. So these hexagons are acting as positions of 3-fold rotational symmetry. If you do the variation that I mentioned before, where these outer triangles are on the opposite side of the paper, then suddenly the triangle becomes the position of threefold rotational symmetry, and these hexagons become positions of twofold rotational symmetry. So you would see the same thing on opposite sides, and then have those three different sides where there's different things on the three different plates. So if the next triangle was over here, it would be a closed triangle on this side, closed triangle hole a short distance away, and closed triangle hole a long distance away. And then it would repeat closed triangle on this side, closed triangle hole a short distance away, closed triangle hole a long distance away. And that would be enough information to continue folding. But those aren't the only patterns that you can fold with these twists in this starting arrangement either. And I have two more actually in the Advent of Tess 2024 ebook if you're interested in learning more about different ways of repeating this pattern. So happy folding. Don't forget to share what you've folded on Instagram or Facebook or wherever else you'd like to share. My Discord server is also a great place to share your photos with other people who are participating in Advent of Tess. And don't forget to use hashtag Advent of Tess, Advent of Tess 24, and tag me at Gathering Folds so I can see what you've folded and share it with everyone else. All right, happy folding everyone, and see you for tomorrow's tutorial, which will be very similar to yesterday and the day before, but putting in rhombus twists instead of more hexagons. So happy folding. See you then.